Hi there, howdy, Mangakanix here. Hands, the little meat hooks at the end of your arm tubes, are one of the biggest obstacles artists have to face. So today I'll be walking you through my neat little method to draw the best darn hands this side of the Mississippi. Now excuse me, but I'll be entering boring teacher mode now. Okay, so first we're gonna go over a bit of the basics. Now I want you to remember this basic shape right here. It's kind of a square with these two ends coming diagonally down. And this right here is where our middle finger will be. It will be slightly to, well, depending on what hand you're looking at, it will be slightly to one side at basically all times, but mostly toward the center. You know where the middle finger is. But basically this shape will be our palm for our hand drawing. Now that we have our lopsided pentagon for our palm, we can also begin to map out where the bones that create the connection to the wrist bone. There's a main bone right here where all the knuckles collide into, kind of. And we can mark where each knuckle is as well. Now that we have this, we can also map out the fingers. Now the fingers each have 3 of these little segments. Of course, each one getting smaller as you approach the top. One important thing to remember is the middle finger in its total length will equal the palm in its total length. So basically middle finger is as big as your palm is. And naturally keep in mind that also the ring finger and the index finger are not as large as the middle finger, and the pinky is even smaller. Now that we have those mapped out, we can map out the thumb as well. The thumb is a weird one because it comes out like here and does a little bit of weird bending action. So I do think the thumb will give you the most trouble for now. Sometimes I mess up the thumb myself as well. Now that we have everything mapped out, it's very easy to start to piece it together. Now I'm gonna start with the palm here. The palm I am drawing, I am doing the back of the palm, where you'll see the knuckles and the veins. An important fact about the knuckles is, they don't always appear, but if you want them to, I say go for it. I usually draw knuckles no matter what's going on. And whether that's anatomically correct, I do not care. So we're gonna follow our guidelines that we've already made. Remember the webbing kind of part in between each finger. And it should be pretty easy from this stage in our drawing to kind of piece everything together. Basically just connecting the dots. And once you've been using this technique for a while, it'll be a lot easier to not have to map out everything. It's actually been a while since I mapped out everything myself. And with this exact pose, I kind of messed up a little bit here, but with the hand spreading open pose, the way the fingers go will be basically the same way as the knuckle lines that we made right here should go. So basically it'll be just like one big line. If you're drawing this exact pose, that won't be the case always, of course. And with the thumb, you'll kind of notice that the thumb never really goes past this knuckle area, unless you're kind of like forcing it, trying to touch the top of your fingertips with your thumb. So in this pose, it definitely wouldn't go past this knuckle area. So we can assume that this is like a safe top of the thumb for now. We're also going to draw this little kind of hiding. I wouldn't say hiding per se, but it helps to give the perspective that the thumb is in fact coming around and into the back or the front of the hand right here. And now that we have the basics done, I'm going to go ahead and erase some of these lines for you so you can see where we're standing at. And with our hand layout right here, next we're going to do the details that are in the hand. We kind of did the knuckles already, but I do want to redefine some of these. It's kind of like a diamond shape with the knuckle. So like imagine a diamond right here. However, it kind of tapers off, if that makes sense. And it will also go with those lines we made right here. The knuckle lines, I like to call them, that connect it to the wrist bone that is present down there. So we're just gonna follow that kind of rule to make our little knuckles. And now that the knuckles are done, we're also gonna do the fingernails and the joint, I don't know what they're called, but they're like joint wrinkles that are on your fingers. So fingernails can be pretty easy. It's kind of just making everything into an oval. I do like to have a bit of a flat end to my fingernails at the bottom there. And then we're gonna add 3 lines. I like to go with 3. You can add more because some of them have a lot more. But 3 is a very nice number for these. So we're just gonna do that on every finger. And since these fingers are kind of like off to the side, you can add some perspective by, how do you say? Having some non-fingernail space right here, instead putting them off to the side. Of course, if you do that, remember to follow this kind of line, and to not put your finger wrinkle thingies in the exact center, because that'll just look weird. And with the thumb, kind of like we did up here, we're gonna also have the fingernail off to the side, because that's where the center is of that finger. And there's our first complete hand. Now, one thing I did forget to mention, these lines follow a curve that is basically exactly like our knuckle beginnings. So the apex will be at the middle finger. And it'll kind of calm down as you move this way. Of course, if you're working with the other hand, so right here we have a right hand. If we're working with the left hand, this will be kind of mirrored and flipped. Now that we kind of have a grasp on the basics, I hope anyway, I hope I've been good enough to teach you that, we're gonna move on to fists. So basically, we're just gonna close every little finger that we have open over here. Now with fists, there are a few ways that you can do them, depending on the perspective of your hand. I think I'll draw an overhead fist for you today, so that we can learn that together. Now we're gonna draw our basic shape that we did last time. Basically following that exact same principle as to how we lay out our hand. As you use this shape with different perspectives, different hand poses, the shape will kind of change and morph, but overall it will remain the same kind of shape. So we still have our little amazing deformed pentagon right here. However, now with this deformed pentagon, we can go ahead and make our fist. So with the fingers, we're gonna imagine that this is still our knuckle line. So we have all of our beautiful little knuckles back here. And we can clearly see which finger is gonna be where. So we can go ahead and make boxes. I like to make the boxes kind of following this line up here, the knuckle line. And of course, we're not going to bring it all the way over here because we still have to have the fingers coming out. I'm going to fix this line over here because it's slightly too wide for our hand. And as you go, you will begin to know and see where's wide, where's too tall, and such things. We're going to continue making our little box right here. Now this one's going to follow kind of an inverted version of up here. So it's going to kind of go down because the middle finger has to be the most progressed finger. I suppose how you could say that. So it would always be at the lowest point of your perspective because it is the longest, of course. Bring this in a little bit more because it is far too wide. And now that we have our little fist here, we got to keep in mind that the thumb will be on this side because the thumb is always on the side of the index finger. So with fists, it can get a little complicated, but I like to draw the end of the thumb first. I'll map that out now, so let's do right here. Let me change the color real quick so it comes out a little bit more. Do right here, and it'll kind of come down, if that makes sense. The thumb in this angle is always very odd to draw, but I'm sure we can do it. So our little cut off sections will be kind of right here, coming down right here. And we're also going to expand our, so right here it's like flat, right? It's like diagonal and flat. However, if you'll notice when you close your hand into a fist, that area that is normally pretty flat kind of fattens up because it's being compressed. So we can add some girth to it to help bring this thumb to life. And also you'll notice at this angle that because it's on top of everything, the main fingers will actually overtake the fat piece of muscle down here, right here. The main fingers will overtake that because it's not the bottom piece of the finger which have the nails and everything. And then for our piece over here, we're gonna kind of mirror almost what we did with our thumb piece. It's just gonna kind of be like a little fat piece of muscle. And we can add our wrists just to help us remember where this is. Maybe a little bit of I don't know what this is called, but it's there when you strain your wrist. One thing is this section of thumb is far too long, so I am gonna move that over here. Now from here I like to divide the fingers. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, basically drawing a little finger dividing line in between these knuckles we have. Remember to follow the perspective because this will come out on this perspective, but because of how the box kind of works, we can see it kind of mimic here, where it goes out and comes back in to make that box effect. These lines will all follow that kind of situation. And now for the fun part of this perspective, which is the knuckles, and by fun part I mean the awful part. Now with knuckles, the middle finger will always be the most pronounced knuckle. The ring and index finger I believe will be roughly the same. Kind of like that. And then the pinky kind of just tapers off right here. So following that formula we can kind of, I like to draw a nice big, almost triangular but with the top cut off knuckle for the middle one. Because I do like very detailed knuckles. And then not as detailed, but still pretty detailed, ring and index finger knuckles. And it tapers off into the pinky. So let me erase a few lines so you can see exactly everything that's happening here. And now, just like with the hand over there, we can go ahead and add our fingernail, which will be up here, with our little joint things. With the thumb, there is only one set of joint wrinkles, I'll call them, I suppose for now. And with this perspective of this knuckle, I also like to, along our little box line right here that I am now erasing, I like to add our joint wrinkles right there. We can add a little bit of detail on the knuckles, have them cutting down into the area. And because it's in my style, I do like to shade the lower box angled parts, because I just think it looks better. And we get a hand like this. Next up, I believe I'm going to show you a way to draw hands sideways. And this one will be a little bit different actually. So, for our lines, we're actually just going to draw kind of like a rainbow in perspective, right? We're still going to use our diagonal stuff right here. I'm going to cut it off right there. Our middle finger will be this finger on top right here, so we're going to go ahead and map out our knuckles. I'm going to have our pinky and ring finger over here with our index finger over there on this line of perspective. And before I draw the thumb, I'm actually going to draw this main hand here. So we're going to go ahead and map out our little thing. With this perspective, I like to do the whole line at once and then section it off. Remember, the finger lines will follow the same angles as our knuckle lines way back here. So now that we have our finger lines, we can go ahead and section them off. I'm actually going to fix this finger line right here. I think the pinky can go a little bit downwards to add more tension in the hand for a better kind of emotion that the hand would be showing. And there we are, we have our sectioned off fingers. Now with this one, we're actually going to see the fingers shape from the side, which basically, on the side with the fingernail, so imagine a fingernail right here, it's going to be sharper with the joints. And on this side, without the fingernail, it's going to be bumpier at the joints. So if we draw a little bit of detail in here, we can see how that works just like so. So now we're just gonna mimic that onto here. Remember, outside is bumpy, or outside is sharp, and then the inside will be bumpy. And with this angle on this hand, we're actually going to give a bit of that muscle that is a bit fatter down here to make it so it's not just diagonal. And also because if you rotate your hand that way, you will see that there is a bit of muscle there. Now I'm just going to erase some of the less important lines so we can see exactly what we're doing. Now we can go ahead and draw some of our details. So I'm going to go ahead and draw some of the knuckles because this area looks very plain. And I love to have knuckles on here. And then moving on from there, we can go ahead and add our joint wrinkles, as well as our fingernails. And since we see these bumps, we can also draw, how do you say, there's an indent in the hand, in the fingers, where those bumps come into play. And now of course you're asking, where is the thumb? Well, the thumb is going to be roughly out here, also reaching out. So I'm going to draw a little bit of the fatty thumb muscle piece right here, and also have that reaching out. Section it off right here, and then we just connect. With the thumb, I like to add a little bit of a more heavy bump when you see it. And now we just erase all the unnecessary lines. We can also add a bit of piece right here. And to add a bit of dimension here, we can also go ahead and shade in with hatching this thumb piece and the ring or index finger. And there we are, there's another hand done, this one from the side. So far you now have a reference point and a pretty clear image, I hope, on a fist, a spread out hand, and a hand from the side. Now for our last hand today, I'm going to draw a turned hand, is what I like to call it. This is definitely by far one of the harder ones for me personally. And by turned hand, I mean basically when you can't see some of the details, maybe the fingers, the knuckles. And it's a concept I only really picked up recently. Now for our example, I am going to use another fist, because I think that showcases the turned hand a bit better. So with this one, we're going to draw our basic shape. However, we're going to shorten how long the other half is, because it'll be turning, and it will go behind the ring finger over here. So basically the pinky will kind of be almost not even there. So from here, we're going to draw right here. I do like to imagine each of the fingers has a plane. So kind of like this. Like this is the middle finger plane, that's the ring finger plane. And the middle finger, or the pinky, doesn't really have a plane, it might have a bit off to the side. And because this is turned that way, our fingers will come back this way. And we might not be able to see a lot of the ring finger at all either. Now with the thumb at this angle plays a very interesting part, because as we know, the thumb is right here. We have to connect it. We can kind of draw a very simple shape, going down diagonally, then straight down, and then connecting this to our base. When it's right here as well, we have a bit of webbing that covers up parts of the finger right here. Now luckily, because this is turned and there's a lot of detail that's gonna be missing, we can go ahead and draw many of our details right now. So the knuckles, we're gonna have the middle finger knuckle, and it's gonna play an interesting part here because it's gonna actually play a big role in blocking a lot of the ring finger. So as you can see, we can't really see the ring finger that much, but we're gonna be able to see the knuckle of the ring finger pretty evidently. Also gonna draw the knuckle of the index and do a little line right here. I'm gonna go ahead and erase some unimportant lines so that you can see what's going on exactly. Now if we do want to get a bit fancy with it, we can see that the ring finger knuckle ends here, but we can have a bit of a piece coming off here for the pinky. It's not gonna be very big because of how it's turned, but it can still have a roll right there. And now all we have to do left is some details. And then, in case you're confused on where this will come in on the hand, we can go ahead and add a bit of an arm right here. And there we have it, we have our turned fist hand. And for today, that'll be our final hand drawing. And there we have it, not too hard, eh? Using this method with the pentagon and sectioning the fingers, you should be able to branch out from here. Use references, gaze upon your hands in an attempt to understand mortality, and you too can obtain the mythical understanding of drawing the cursed pen-holding limb. Anyways, I hope you learned a lot in spite of my awful teaching skills, and I thank you for watching. See you later!